Ladies and gentlemen, come gather around, come gather around, come gather around. Today, we're hooking up some radiator fans, some air conditioning, oil coolers, hydro boost power brake lines and stuff. So here we are. I am making a shroud, making my own shroud to adapt some kind of crazy 17-inch fan I bought off of eBay to my 1961 Chevy Apache 10 pickup. This is roof of Toyota Corolla. Anytime I get rid of a car, I just keep the sheet metal, skin it off, and store it because you never know when you might need it. I'm flaring the edges right here where the hole is just to put a little bit of rigidity back in the panel. It's just a 1/2-inch piece of steel with a slit cut in the end that I can use to slightly bend up the edge of the metal. Bead roller works fine too. Probably could have used that. And there's my sheet metal brake. Link above to building a sheet metal brake. If you want to build a sheet metal brake like that, man, it was fun. Anyways, clean her all up, get the sharp edges off. And you say to yourself, golly, why is the hole off center? Well, so am I. But down below by my feet, you can see the white version 1 of my oil or radiator fan shroud thingy, which I got that far and I wasn't really happy with the mounts and then discovered there was interference. I couldn't get the thing to fit properly. So I made a new one. These are the brackets to mount the fan shroud and the fan to the radiator. For giggles, I'm just doing a bunch of holes using the hole saw. The pain is picking out the pieces of sheet metal in there. And then I've fabricated a bunch of dimple dies, which I'm going to use to give it some kind of racy look. Easy to put a little stepped fold in there by using the bead roller as well. Dimple dies are pretty fun. I should do a video on making those. They're pretty easy, really. You can buy them in hardened steel, but honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Not the amount that I use them. I cut little slots on the sides of the brackets for the radiator because there's a raised kind of a bead in the flange for the radiator and it interfered. I probably should have ran the bead roller in there and just raised up a section to clear, but I didn't think that through and then it was a problem, and so I just cut sections out and then I welded in pieces of like a third of a piece of 3/4 or 1-inch round to give it kind of a I don't know, like a bridge sort of looking thing. I don't know. It looked all right to me. Here I'm thinking about how to deal with that. Drills. Step drills are fun. Cheap ones are not so fun. Golly. Ran out of things to talk about. I think I may have welded nuts onto the bottom of this. Partly to get away from the added depth if I used like a riv nut. I had an aluminum nutsert kind of thing from Princess Auto, which I'm not convinced I want. I'd rather have steel. I've since bought a steel riv nut inserting tool and everything, but I didn't at the time that I made this. So I probably just welded nuts on the backside. It'll probably work fine. Yeah, these are the little tube bridges I put on there. All right, cleaning her up. Making it all nice and smooth. Making sure it clears the hoses or spigots for the rad. Some folks would say just put the fan on the radiator, don't worry about a shroud. Others will say you get more efficiency because the fan is drawing from the whole radiator. Others will say you get less efficiency as speed because now you're making the air hit a wall before it gets to the fan and that'll slow down your cooling. I don't know. This is what I did. We'll see what happens. I also don't have a whole lot of space in the front of this truck, so the engine oil cooler is going on the back side of the fan. It'll work. I probably don't need an engine oil cooler, but I have one. And the engine came with the fittings to run one, so why not? It certainly can't hurt, especially since it's turbocharged 6-liter. So I'm mounting not the fan. It's on the fan. I'm attaching the oil cooler to the fan. If I remember, I'll add a link to the oil cooler installation on the V8 Firefly up above, but I didn't run it because it actually overcooled the engine. Anyways, I've got a lot of stuff in the front of my 61 Apache. I've got the basic radiator, and then I've got the intercooler for the turbocharger, and then I've got the condenser for the air conditioning, and then I've got the cooler for the transmission. Then I got the radiator. Then I got the cooler for the engine oil, and I'm running out of real estate. I also have a cooler for the power steering because I'm using Hydro Boost to run my power brakes, and that stuff apparently gets warm. So there's a ton of coolers that need to be fit. I'll be the cooler king. Anyways, get that all mounted up, make sure it fits, take it over to the truck, and you can see I've got 1.25" square tubing just spacing the radiator a little bit closer to the motor. It all fits in there, but it's a bit tight. Assembled my own AN hoses for the engine oil. You really want to run at least 5/8 hose or -10 AN hose. You want as little restriction and pressure loss for motor oil as you can. This is about the size of the original oil cooler lines that came with the engine, or maybe a size bigger. Anyways, trying to fit all of this is a bit of a challenge. There's the original adapter that I drilled and threaded for AN adapters. They're actually JIC fittings. A Smart Cookie would have used the ORB, but I used pipe thread because that made sense to me at the time. I have no idea what I'm making right now. I was trying to bend a piece of metal. Oh, I know what I was making. It was a bracket for the air conditioning dryer. And all the effort I put into making this and trying it, in the end I thought, this thing is ugly. And I threw it in my little stash of junk at the bottom of the vise and thought up something else. So I really should make a stand for that belt sander. This, I think, is just a piece of 2.5-inch exhaust with a couple brackets that I welded onto it, and it just looked a little classier, a little bit nicer. So this was the route I'm going. Actually, once I finished making the whole stinking AC dryer mount, I found the AC dryer mounts in the kit that I bought. So hooray, hurrah. These look better. The other ones look like hose clamp, only half the strength. I may cut some stuff in there and give it a bit more style. I don't really know. Anyways, that's the mount. And it tucks into the firewall in the engine bay, kind of nestled in around the charge pipe from the turbocharger. The whole air conditioning kit I bought, it wasn't really a kit. I bought off of eBay a hose kit, which required me buying a hose crimper. I also bought a condenser for the size that I figured would fit. That goes through the 1.25" square tubing that spaces out the radiator. And I bought an underdash AC unit, all in, well, not the tools, but everything for the AC, including adapters to connect to the LS compressor, which you can see by the jack stand there, all in for like $410 Canadian shipped. Pretty cheap. I went underdash with this because it's kind of the way it was done back in the 60s, but every aftermarket AC unit for $2,000 or $2,500 or whatever it is, they block off the fresh air and it's only recirculate. Well, I want to drive this in a Canadian winter, so I may regret having, I forgot what I was talking about. I may regret having no fresh air, but I assure you, good heat is kind of nice to have in winter. And in winter, or summer, when this underdash unit is running, I just close off the fresh air. It's automatically in recirculate. I should have killer AC and a killer heater. These are the bulkhead fittings that came in the hose kit. I think I eventually figured out how I'm going to route the hoses. I did have the unit angled a little weird just to clear the heater to make sure hot air got to my feet. I may reconsider and run a duct over to my feet, but it's probably going to be fine. And then just because it's kind of hard to see under the dashboard, I just got a flashlight. It's like an opera, like right in the middle of the you feel really important when the spotlight's on you, or not on you. but partly it's getting hard to see, and I'm old, so there we are. Bulkheads pop out right beside the heater, which is right above the exhaust from the turbo, so that heater's going to be smoking. And the AC has to be kind of going past the turbocharger, and there we are. I did have to lengthen I think this is the high pressure side, and move the fitting for it because it wasn't going to fit the pump really well. This is the condenser coming through the 1.25-inch tubing. This is a fancy bracket that welds to the intercooler bracket that holds the transmission cooler. These are JIC fittings I bronze welded onto the end of the power steering cooler. That's how it all fits. It actually all fits behind the grill and under the hood. Tickety-boo. I also moved the return on the power steering reservoir from where my finger is on the right to the left-hand side, brazed a JIC fitting, which is AN compatible, and had Princess Auto bend me up a couple lines. There it is, man. Fun. Good times and giggles. Next, fixing rust, which is, oh my, is it ever fun. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.